Now, so this may seem like it is more biology oriented, but remember, at the end of the day, even H2O is still a chemical. All right. So, but essentially, we have been able to develop what we call antibody drug candidates. Okay, and these are able to deliver to specific sites, for instance, cancer cells. And also, we have controlled release systems. In this particular case, we use polymeric materials, okay, to administer a drug. But the point is, they are able to protect before it is time for release, and also able to release in what looks like a dose-dependent fashion. All right, so the role of chemical innovation in clinical trials. Thank you. The role of chemical innovation in clinical trials. So, like I said, clinical trials is a very important stage, okay, in the process of drug discovery. If your compound is fine in the lab but fails at clinical stage, it is dumped, okay? It goes nowhere. Now, so chemical innovations help in both in vitro and in vivo models, okay, to predict how new drugs will behave in a person. Of course, biomarkers have also been able to help us, okay, in this kind of monitoring. Also, pharmacokinetics and pharmacodynamics, which are very important parameters we look at, especially in the preclinical stages. We want to be able to measure precisely the level of drug absorption, the level of drug distribution, the level of drug metabolism, and drug excretion. Now, these are very critical parameters for any drug, because you don't want to use a drug that is just accumulating in your body. You don't want to use a drug that is not being distributed properly and you can get it out as at when due. You don't want to use a drug that isn't absorbed through the tissues of the body. Okay, so mass spectrometry and bioassays have also proved very important in this regard. Now, from laboratory to patient, just taking a look at how this affects the patient care. The first thing I'd like to talk about is regulatory requirements. So with innovations in chemistry, we are able to actually determine very clear standards, okay, for drug approval, because a drug needs to be safe and effective. So when we say cure for cancer, for instance, they are still struggling with cure for cancer. That's not really the correct way to put that statement. There are cures for cancer. The problem is we need a cure for cancer that is selective for cancer cells. Okay? If it cures cancer and if it kills cancer and kills normal cells, it's not really safe. Okay? So it's not that we don't know what can kill cancer. What we need is selectivity in cancer treatment. Okay, so these are things that we can obviously, with our knowledge of chemistry, advance today. And of course, personalized medicine. Like I said, the keynote speaker already alluded to this. You can have ways of using pharmacogenomics, to adjust dosages and select the most effective drug for a particular individual. And lastly on this, post-marketing surveillance remains very important, okay? After the drug is already out, we keep monitoring, okay? If there are things to check, if there are side effects that were unexpected, they need to be checked. The classical story will be the case of thalidomide. I don't know how many of us remember the story of thalidomide. As we begin to round up, the impact on patient care, of course, is key. I mean, what we are looking at is how all of this affects the care for the patient. Transformative therapies, as a result of chemical innovations, have been born, and breakthroughs, particularly in the area of immunotherapy, precision medicine, and gene editing, continue to advance this area of science. And then, of course, improved quality of life, okay? New formulations, intravenous treatments, all enhance, the patient quality of life. And lastly, on this, reducing healthcare costs. So, while drug development, of course, we know is expensive, we know that we can afford to reduce the long-term healthcare cost by producing drugs that are more effective. And so the last major section will be current trends in chemical innovation, artificial intelligence and machine learning. AI is not just the next buzzword. AI is truly something that has come to stay. So artificial intelligence is also involved even in the area of drug design, okay? Because of our time, I think I'll just leave it at that. Next is green chemistry. Green chemistry is looking at how we can remain environmentally friendly. We're not just trying to make drugs at all costs, even if we are killing the environment. We are trying to look at eco-friendly and efficient synthetic methods to reduce waste in the environment. Gene editing, okay, which again leans more to the biology side of things, is also very, very critical. And lastly is drug repurposing. But I should say something about drug repurposing. Now, you see, there are compounds that have made it through the entire clinical trials, but ended up failing when we actually use them to treat the actual infection we wanted them to treat. Okay? But if you remember during the COVID pandemic, while it takes all of those years to design a drug, you know that we started attacking COVID within 1 year. Okay? Now you should have been thinking that, okay, what exactly is this person saying if I said it takes 12 to 14 years to make a drug? But one of the things we did during the COVID pandemic was to look at drugs that are already on the market, that have made it through, and then begin to look at how we can repurpose some of them. Because we now have better understanding of the target, so we began to look at what we can use to hit that target. And so in repurposing of drugs, for instance, thalidomide, originally developed as a sedative, was later repurposed for leprosy. Okay? Metformin was initially developed for diabetes treatment, but it's now being explored even in cancer therapy. Okay, so this it just shows that at times we can save time by going back to look at the library. So there's no time where we will dump literature, where we will dump all the things that have been done in the past. In conclusion, chemistry is fundamental to every stage of drug development, from discovery to delivery. Innovations in this field not only drive scientific progress, but also directly enhance patient care and make treatments more effective, personalized, and accessible. As we look to the future, continued investment in chemical research and innovation will be essential for developing the next generation of therapies, ultimately improving global health outcomes. By way of acknowledgement, I'd like to thank the organizers of this wonderful conference for inviting me. I'd like to appreciate the entire staff under the able leadership of the Dean for this opportunity. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so very much, sir. Now, the next on the agenda is the panel discussion, which is going to be moderated by Dr. Ogali. Please, let's celebrate her as she steps forward. Let's celebrate her. Are we tired?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This this is a panel discussion session, so I'm not going to be doing it alone. So you kindly please join me, invite the following persons to come join those on the high table so we can have this discussion together. Professor Ayo Moge Helen, please come up stage. Dr. Fumilayo Agbaje, please come up stage. And Dr. Mojisola Asowata, please come up stage. We're going to be discussing together the role of nutraceuticals in disease prevention. Professor Ayo Omoge is a professor of food science. Dr. Agbaje is also a leading scholar in food science and technology. I am a phytomedic, a doctor of phytomedicine. And Dr. Asowata, please come this way. And Dr. Asowata also is a phytomedicine practitioner. And so we'll answer the question from the aspect of nutrition and from the aspect of medicinal plant studies and disease management. So you're welcome, ladies. Media, can you help us with another microphone, please? So because the subject matter has to do with the role of nutraceutical in disease prevention, the first thing we want to do is to have all of our speakers tell us something about the concept of nutraceuticals. What is it about? I'm sure the students here are hearing for the first time, so can you kindly tell us what it's about?
Thank you very much. First of all, I'm Ayomoge Heli.
Hello.
Nutraceuticals are usually part of a food or in some cases food, but basically they are usually isolated or presented in either isolated or concentrated form, and then they are basic. The basic concept is that apart from providing the basic nutrients in a food, in which case some of them meet basic nutritional requirements for humans, they are also used in the prevention of diseases. And then the concept was actually based on the fact that materials serve as nutrient requirements. And in some cases, some of the food materials can also help in providing form of prevention for some diseases. And basically, that's what the nutraceuticals are. And it's also important to know that they are not synthetic drugs. They are normally from natural source. They are sourced from natural sources like plants, animals, and microorganisms. Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Agbaje, you just heard Professor Ayomoge said that nutraceuticals are sourced from food. So you want to throw some light to tell us how are nutraceuticals different from functional foods or chemotherapies? Because I know you are a functional food specialist. Can you speak to that?
Thank you very much, Dr. Ogale. Fumilayo Joy Gbenga Fabuso Agbaje by name, and I specialize on functional food chemistry. Then when you talk about nutraceutical, it's come from two words, nutrition and pharmaceutical. When you talk about nutrition, there are basic nutrients needed in the body, which could be in form of protein, good fiber, minerals like calcium, magnesium. Then pharmaceutical, you are considering the health benefit of that particular food we are talking about. So when you are talking about nutraceutical, they are bioactive ingredients obtained from natural products, like what Professor Omoge said, from food, plants, animal that have that can produce optimal health benefits for humankind. However, these nutraceuticals, they are different from functional food, even though they are similar in some extent. Functional food are the food products obtained from food components. Maybe you combine two or more food together, depending on their health benefit that they can render for human being. For example, Gbenga Farms Eto produce pigeon pea biscuits from functional food that help to manage diabetes. So we produce biscuits from pigeon pea and wheat flour. And we did the clinical trial and it was able to regulate blood sugar level. So we can call that one functional food, even though it's different from the nutraceutical. Thank you very much.
Okay, so thank you so much. You have something more to add.
Sorry, I also want to add that actually functional foods and nutraceuticals, they have some similarities. The first similarity is that they are from natural sources. They are naturally based. Secondly, they are actually meant to help overall health well-being. However, their differences, they are different in three forms. One is their format, the form of presentation, in which case functional foods are whole foods, like you eat your beans, your grains and the rest of them. But in the case of nutraceuticals, they are usually presented in form of tablets, in form of pills, in form of capsules, in form of liquids. So they are called dietary supplements. Another thing about the functional food is that the mode of consumption for functional food, they are normally not regulated. It's normal food that you eat. But in the case of nutraceuticals, they are regulated to be taken in as supplements. So if you are taking your food, normally you take your breakfast, your lunch, and your dinner. But in the case of nutraceuticals, they have to be taken at specific time and at specific dosage. So those are, and then their mechanism of action, they are usually different. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. So, Dr. Osowata, as a phytomedic, I'd like you to address this issue from that aspect, but the question to you will be, these food scientists are arguing that nutraceuticals are components of food, combination of food, disease prevention, but I want to ask you as a phytomedic, is it okay for us to sideline or do away with traditional medicine, or let's not say traditional pharmaceuticals, let me bring it down, indigenous medicine like our agbo, because these are also naturals. They are claiming that nutraceuticals are naturals. Okay, so should we do away from those and just stick to nutraceuticals for prevention of disease?
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Abiola Mujisola Asowata Ayodele. As Dr. Galia rightly introduced, I'm a specialist in phytomedicine, ethnobotanist. So that question that should we do away with okay,
maybe it's that place that you are.
Don't worry. Should we it's okay, this one is working. Should we do away with our traditional medicine? I think the basic is that we should first of all look at what is that nutraceutical. That nutraceutical that we just mentioned here is about the nutrition aspect, that is what we take into our body daily, our daily requirements for our body. Then marrying it with pharmaceutical, that is what we require to treat our body. So when it's married to each other, that is nutraceutical. That is taking something that will also help your well-being and at the same time managing an infection or disease. So when we now talk about nutraceutical, we are having different forms. That's, as Professor Moge said, we have it in medicinal plants, we have it in dietary forms, we have it in functional food, we have it in so many ways. So, but doing away totally with our traditional medicine, that is not correct, and that cannot be. But the thing is that the particular active ingredients that is important in a particular plant is being extracted in more quantity than when you take the plant alone or the food alone. For example, let me mention this Vitis and vinifera is in red wine. When you take it just like that, you take resveratrol in per liter at low milligram. But when it's being converted to nutraceutical, it is in 500 milligram. So you take that, it addresses a particular chronic disease according to what he wants to address is at higher concentration. Then we have lycopene from tomato, carrot. So anybody having an issue, probably you have eye defects or glaucoma or something, they will tell you take more of carrots, because it consists the supplements, food carrot supplements that turns to nutraceutical consists more of that milligram in that nutraceutical than the one you just consume in the carrot. And there are several plants. We have agave, we have cyanobacteria. I have chapters on that. With that, we have, when we take the active ingredients in them to address the particular infection, it takes care of that infection at the same time our well-being. So I think
okay, thank you so much. Someone wants to add something? Okay, so that addresses it from the phytomedicine perspective. Traditional, our local preparations are not inferior to nutraceuticals. However, they work side by side, especially as it got to do with what it is that is the health condition. If it's a nutrition-based deficiency, then you should embrace all of nutraceutical. But if it's not a nutrition-based disease or infection, then you should want to think about traditional medicine, herbal medicine, pharmaceuticals, and the likes to manage the disease. Okay, moving on, Professor Omoge, you heard Professor Olomola talking about precision medicine, talking about how that a particular drug may not work for a particular person doesn't mean the drug is not effective. If we bring that to nutraceutical, does that also affect the efficacy of nutraceuticals? Is person to person difference, genomic makeup, or does it affect the efficacy of nutraceuticals? Please speak to that.
Thank you very much. Usually, even though nutraceuticals have benefits, they are also limited. Everything in life has its own limitation. We may not call it disadvantages, but of course they are limited. One of the things is genetic differences or variation. Some people, as a result of their genes or genome, they react differently to particular nutraceuticals. I heard of a story some time ago. It actually happened, not like a story. The person who was there said it. These people that sell agbo, our local women, she just carried it, brought it by, and a cluster of men were seated, and others got the same quantity and drank. And one particular person also drank the same quantity, and the person stretched immediately, and he died. Within seconds, he was already gone. So, not because not because the active ingredients in that particular drug, local herb, it's poisonous, but because the system of the person reacts negatively. All right, so it is important that before people go on to take these nutraceuticals, they should check their genomic makeup, their resistance to drug, their adverse reactions. Some people have allergic reactions. There are things that are not drugs, but I don't take personally. For example, I don't take honey. Not because it's poisonous, I don't try it. Every time I have tried taking honey, I ended up in the hospital. All right, because my system reacts negatively and differently. So you should be able to check. So as a result of genetic makeup, it can affect your acceptance or the efficacy of the nutraceutical. So genetic makeup and then microbiome difference too can also affect the efficacy of the nutraceutical. Thank you.
Okay, I can see Dr. Agbaje wants to react. I'll just add another question to you. She has already given you a pointer that there's a problem.
I want to write it.
Okay, so let's just...
I want us to realize that the chemistry of our body, the chemistry of my body is different from Dr. Aswata's chemistry of the body. The way we react to a particular nutraceutical might be different from the way she will react. And I want us to know that these nutraceuticals we are talking about are not well regulated by DFA like pharmaceutical products. So we should be very careful. While taking nutraceutical, we should check the labeling. What are the products? What are the nutritional composition of that particular nutraceutical particular products that you want to take, you have to understand what is put on the labeling. Is it okay by you? Have you tested it before? Has it been approved? Then when we check it, and with the chemistry of our body, we know either we should take it or not. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. I want to disagree with my professor. I'm not yet a professor, but
yes, it's allowed because she's talking from a phytomedicine perspective, not from a nutrition perspective.
Because you cannot ascertain or jump to that conclusion that it's not safe. Nutraceuticals, to me, they are quite mild and safe. They are weak. The supplements, they are just like our food. So that's why they say, let your food be your medicine and let the medicine be your food. So I think it addresses particular disease and infection in the body, and at the same time working for your well-being, it's just like taking carrots. Is there any negative effect when you take too much of carrots? Or it's just like taking no-cost beans? Then honey. Taking on a natural time, you would have even taken it with some things that you don't even know. It might not be that particular thing. So we should be enough time research that we be able to ascertain that is a nutraceutical causes any side effect. But for me, what I know is that it's not toxic, it's mild, so it rarely seems to induce any negative effects. I'm sorry, my prof.
I'm sorry. I didn't say they are not safe. I said genetic variations. And then the issue of honey, it's not a one-time thing. The first time I took it, I ended up in the hospital. And I thought because I took too much of it. And after 5 years, that time I was still single. After 5 years, I got married. My husband forced me and said, no, it's because you're mine. Maybe you took too much. I took it again. I ended up in the hospital. And about 3 years after, I tried it again. I ended up, I didn't take it with anything. So I have come to, I'm not saying they are, like I said, it's not that they are not safe. Just as a result of your genetic, okay, good, very good example. I'm a food scientist. There are people who do not take, there is what we call allergenicity. There are people who do not take sesame. Sesame is a proteinous seed. It is rich. However, it has some proteinous compounds that certain people react to. Then there are people who do not take milk, what we call lactose intolerance. They take milk. I'm coming. As a result of their genetic makeup, they are not able to produce synthesize the enzyme required to metabolize those compounds, and so when they take those foods, it results in adverse reactions. So it's not that it's not safe generally. So, but individual differences, like she said, individual differences in the chemistry of individuals can result to adverse effect, and that was why I said before you take anything, please check. Be sure you have tried it and it's working for you. Okay, a very good example. I'm sorry for taking your time. There are people who do not take chloroquine. The same chloroquine has been found to be the most effective drug for treatment of malaria, but there are people who do not take it because they react adversely to it. And the doctor will tell you anything you react adversely to, please do not take. Thank you.
That is
okay, so I'd like to take us from phytomedicinal perspective of this question. One thing you should understand is all of us are different. That has been established, and then I might have an underlying health factor that is not the same with you. So we can take the same things, even water, and then we react differently. Please take note of the fact that we have said your genetic makeup and then underlying health conditions that are not the same can also impact on your reaction when you take certain nutraceuticals. Now that we've established that, can we? Yes, so now that we've said that nutraceuticals are different from pharmaceuticals, from chemotherapeutics, so I'd like you to know, I'm sure this audience wants to know more. Okay, for those of us who are just hearing for the first time, I'm sure there are many people. Please, if you know you have heard for the first time nutraceutical, that word, can you raise your hand? Nutraceutical, if you're hearing it for the first time, can you raise your hand? Thank you. At least some of them are not shy. So how do you put it out to more people out there about nutraceutical? What's the way to promote this so that people can also benefit? Because you just mentioned your research. Me that is in the university, I have not read it.
Okay, like I explained, like I said at the beginning, nutraceutical